just for reference, Stella Forward is Miranda's mum, and Mike Ball used to sit with us with his wife, Marlene and Mike Ball sat with us. And Mike was a professor of mathematics, is that right, at university?
Head of department.
Head of department, yeah. And unfortunately developed a brain condition and stopped being able to function, really. A real cruel illness for him. Anyway, he died 4 days ago, Mike Ball. When I see those names, it always reminds me of you. Time swiftly passes by, opportunity is lost, you know. Gosh. Real lesson. I hadn't planned to talk about this evening, but I don't know whether on a Wednesday night I've talked about it, but definitely on a Thursday night. I've been talking about the red thread in our lives. And I hadn't realised until I came across it last week that actually there's a koan about it. And a monk asked, why can't the clear-eyed bodhisattva sever the red thread? Why can't the clear-eyed bodhisattvas sever the red thread? Which is really interesting, because I think when we've talked about the red thread, I've talked about this as a reoccurring pattern in your life that you perhaps don't even see until, you know, down the line. It probably starts, maybe even starts in childhood, you know, or certainly as we get into our 20s. All the ups and downs in our lives, the passions and the joys and the sadnesses, they all, when you retrospectively look back, there does seem to be a pattern there. And I'd call that the red thread. And the red thread, I suppose, is what traps you. It's your desires, it's your passions. And but from this koan, you know, why can't the clear-eyed bodhisattvas sever the red thread? For me, that is implying is that actually it is this reoccurring pattern. It is this familiarity you have with your own vulnerability and your own stuckness that allows you to be understanding and empathetic to other people. Because if you didn't have that, you'd probably be a cocky bugger, you know, and not very understanding of other people's difficulties. So the red thread. I can't remember if it was a Wednesday or a Thursday, but I remember when I did ask folk, you know, what the red thread was in their life. Most people were either didn't know or were reluctant to express it publicly. But what I do remember is the one common denominator of those people who did talk about it was that it did seem to be based around fear. That this red thread was around fear. And that seems to me to be true, really. I haven't got my other Raksu on tonight, but on my transmission Raksu, I did ask to have written on the back, if the mind was free from fear, we would be free, you know. We're free if the mind is free from fear. And the fixed way that we are, and forgive me, I know that I kind of talk from a perspective of that we're all stuck. I also know that to some degree, this is just a partial view. We're all to some more or less free as well, but we're all stuck. And the reason we're stuck, I think, if we look at this red thread, if we think about fear, is that a lot of what we do is to avoid pain. So we're usually grasping at experiences that we like, and we're rejecting experiences that we dislike, and the experiences we dislike are usually ones that make us feel insecure. And then what happens is that we create a story around this, who we are, of the contracted ways that we are, and the experiences that come out of that. We create a story around it, and then we get locked into that story, and it becomes self-fulfilling. And suddenly, we're locked into what I think, certainly for myself, if I look back, we get locked into a false view of what reality really is. We get locked into a view of our own very narrow reality. And you could then ask, quite legitimately, well, why would that be a common thing for people to do? Why would we do that? Why would we restrict ourselves? And I think because it provides at least an illusion of stability and permanence. When we're surrounded by uncertainty and the flux of existence, So even if my story is that I'm nothing and nobody, at least it's a story. It provides me with a sense of comfort of who I am. And one definition of freedom, if you like, is that we completely identify with the story. We decide this is my story and this is the way I'm going to be, and I accept the limitations that it creates. Another freedom is to see that you've created a story, and that story is self-scripted, and you don't want to change the script. And then you think, oh, maybe I can, maybe I can, maybe I can create a new character here, a new me. I can become a co-author, if you like, of my life. And you can see that. You can see that if you go to any airport in the summer. Folk are coming back from holiday and they've created a new character for themselves when they've been away, and they even continue to wear the hat that they were wearing when they were in Spain or whatever. Even though they were landed back in the rain, they've created a new character, given themselves a sense of freedom. Of course, it evaporates quite quickly, or seems to. And then the third way is that when you realise, the real freedom is when you realise that my story is only a story. And in a way, when you come to that, that's the point at which you can start a spiritual practice. Because then it gives you some space to move. And how do you, then the question arises, you realise you created your own story. How can I allow the story to develop without it being conditioned by all my old ways of being? And that then becomes tricky, And you can't. I know for myself anyway, and maybe you've discovered it, but maybe not, that I can't change myself by an act of will. I can't say, I can't make a New Year's resolution that I will be different. It kind of doesn't work, And that's because when we do that, we're just setting up a whole new set of concepts, a whole new set of boxes. They may be bigger boxes, they may be more attractive boxes, but they're still boxes we're setting ourselves up. This is how we're going to be. So, my sense of the only way to begin, if you like, the move toward being more free, and Suzuki, not D.T. Suzuki, the other Shinryu Suzuki, calls this beginner's mind. And that's being present with every experience just as it is, as it comes up. And so when fear comes up, because because something is fearful, we feel the fear. We don't look for an exit route immediately, a solution to the feeling that we're having so that we can bail out. We allow ourselves to be fully present to the fear. And the other consequence of this is that we have to become beginners again, because each of us is the most expert on ourselves. I think that's right. I don't think anybody can be more expert about ourselves than ourselves. And of course, the problem with experts is that they know all the answers. So as soon as if you become an expert on yourself, you're closing everything down. You're not leaving anything open. So again, as Suzuki says, beginner's mind has to come in. You're not an expert anymore. You're just a beginner, and this self that's wandering around, you allow it to be to experience things more freshly, if you like. You try not to predict how things are going to be. You don't. So in each new situation, give yourself the opportunity to respond differently. So and all of us, I guess, have patterns of response. And I would suggest that a fun thing to do, if you can do it, is to recognize what your normal response is to situations and see what it's like to take a different view. It's interesting. I mean, you may get knocked about a bit. That's what happens, if you've imprisoned yourself behind all these walls of self-protection, and then you knock the walls down, obviously you're going to get knocked by the world. It's one of the prices you pay to be free, that you will get knocked. So if you change your way of being, you may find that people will be rude to you. You may also find people will be much kinder to you, or more open to you. But yeah, that's it's a suggestion. So, just to put this in the context of Buddhism and the Buddhist tradition, it's quite hard things to say concisely and clearly, but the story that we devise for ourselves, the stories that we say about the world is, how the world is, you will notice anyway that they have different emphases and different tendencies. And what the Buddha was recommending when he talked about greed, anger and ignorance is that if we have a tendency to manifest in those ways, then our plan is to minimize that and to reinforce the more wholesome qualities of kindness and generosity and openness, if you like. So although I said we can't will these things, essentially what the practice is about is you carrying the intention to act to emphasize your actions in the ways that manifest kindness, wisdom, generosity. And then you've got all that going on, and then you think about karma, and will your karma improve or will your karma not? And what you finally come to is that you changing, is only possible if there is an unconditioned. Because if there isn't an unconditioned, if there isn't an emptiness, if you like, or shunyata, then there's no space for reality to change. So this is where the idea of shunyata and emptiness arises, and one definition of that is that it's the exhaustion of all theories, all views, and all concepts. So emptiness is the exhaustion of all views, concepts, and theories. So that you've now got an empty palette, an empty canvas, if you like, on which to write your new story. So you've got the relative and the absolute acting simultaneously. Yeah. So, can your life story, your new life story, decrease suffering as opposed to your old life story that maybe didn't? What do you think? Do you think you can stay in your story?
So, I think it's interesting what you said throughout really, but
Yeah. Sorry I was rambling a bit, by the way. It's quite hard to say that stuff clearly, so apologies, I rambled. Go on.
But you know what you were saying about making resolutions, I am going to be different.
Yeah.
I am going to be kind, generous, compassionate and wise from tomorrow. That it doesn't really work. That I've picked up what you're saying. You know, one of the benefits of Zazen is you put yourself into a place where you become, you're not forcing those qualities, rather you're becoming aware of when anger is coming up, when greed is coming up. You know, just seeing them come up and having a choice. Because there's a bit of a gap there, having a choice as to whether I want to act out of greed, anger, ignorance. And that those other things then can come in. Is that the essence of it?
That's it,
rather than forcing wisdom.
Rather than forcing it, I think you can change through an act of will, but I don't think it lasts. The old self creeps back in as soon as you drop your guard, you know.
Usually lasts till mid-January.
Mid-January, yeah.
I think that a Christian saint put this rather interestingly. You'll tell me which saint it was, I'm sure you know. And he said, I vow to allay my feelings on greed, but not yet.
Oh yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Easy to do.
Easy to do, yeah, but not yet. Yeah. It's like giving up smoking, I'll wait till the end of the month.
So, this thing about the red thread, all our patterns. At this moment, that red thread is right there, ready to go, continue. And at this moment, every single moment, that red thread is there, ready, you know. If we engage with it, it will continue. So if we react to it, we will be part. It'll function again. But if we don't react to it, if we just are, then whatever the energy, whether it's going to be negative, positive, anger, greed, fear, whatever it is, if you don't react to it, it will just
fall away.
And then, instead of being caught in something, the reactivity of struggling either to get rid of something or to grab hold of something, in that space where the red thread has reared its ugly head again, and you've gone, aha, I see you, but I'm not going to do anything. And you just are, you just see it, and it appears, and you do nothing, and then whatever that energy is, it will just fall away because you haven't grabbed hold of it or pushed it. And then in that space, that to me is when that's a moment of freedom. And in that freedom, in that moment of freedom, you've actually disengaged from this red thread. And to me, the miracle of all of this is the fact, in that little tiny space, there's a kind of breath of fresh air, a bit of light, and dare I say it, compassion arises in your own heart. You feel compassion for yourself that you didn't just play the red thread again, and there's a freedom in that. And I think that's where it's a moment-to-moment possibility.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you. So, on the back of that, does anybody have any response to the koan? Why can't clear-eyed bodhisattvas? Why cannot clear-eyed bodhisattvas sever or cut the red thread?
For me, it's because the red thread makes them bodhisattva.
The red thread makes them bodhisattvas, yeah. So out of the experience of holding on to the thread, yeah, they recognise the suffering's created, yeah.
They're the same as everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Why?
Something about we're not separate from cutting it or implies getting rid of it as if it's separate to us in some way.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of what you are.
You can't get rid of what you all know.
And if you do try to, it will just come more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't make much sense. But
No, I understand. You're right. I think you can't.
I like the idea of, not being able to change the whole industry, isn't it? Self-help gurus.
Oh, yeah.
We can change,
Yeah.
I've bought their books in the past and been on courses, and God knows what, and I know what's different, but I accept that, so...
I was in the airport this morning and I saw 30 self-help books. I counted them. They were all there, 30 of them. They're mainly about business, and being a leader and all that stuff. But yeah. If any one of them worked.
There's always a Zen one thrown in. Zen and the arts of business, for God's sake. It's all so easy,
Is the Koan about is the Koan about intention?
Yeah.
And the bodhisattvas can't intentionally cut the red thread any more than anyone else can because because we can't change ourselves. If they cut the red thread, if the red thread gets cut, it's done in a different way without them personally involved.
Yeah. Did you ask about intention then, or were you just saying what you felt? Sorry.
I was asking. Yeah, saying what I feel is that they can't intentionally drop the red thread. That's not what they're doing.
No. I mean, I think the intention is always to be present to what's happening. That's you just carry that intention, and you'll fail regularly.
Are we talking about self-deception?
Self-deception.
And if so, we are looking at ourselves and failing to see the unskillful things we
Failing
do.
to see
The unskillful things we do.
That's right. Yeah.
But how can we look at our own story and revise it and recreate it if we're not totally aware already of where we're going astray?
Yeah.
So who's going to tell us
Yeah.
where our story is
Well, somebody could tell you.
maybe you.
Maybe me, maybe the person you live with, maybe your mum, maybe a friend, maybe a shopkeeper. Lots of people can feed back to us. But I think when we become most clear that we have a story in this tradition anyway, through sitting Zazen. If we sit for long enough, we all the thoughts that come up, we just see the pattern of them, the repetition of them, the unyieldingness of them, the way we see the world. And Sesshin can really, Sesshin can really focus us, because our sensitivities and our awarenesses become really heightened, So if something pisses us off in an ordinary everyday way, if we're on Sesshin, it really pisses us off. We really get, wound up by it. Sesshin sickness, I call it. Yeah. But it's great because it brings it home. Yeah.
In some traditions of Buddhism, people do confessions.
Confession, really?
Confessions. And of course that we associate with Christianity, but I think it does happen in Buddhism as well.
It happened in China as well,
Well,
didn't
it might be an interesting process
Yeah.
if we can find someone to confess to.
Oh, we could set you up in a box, Maurice. We'll confess to you. You can probably carry us. I'm sure you've heard far worse things than any of us can confess to.
Can I ask a question, Sensei,
Sure.
about the story? The story I spin loads of stories, never stop spinning them, and they can become very clever ones. Like I know this story is nonsense. That's another story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, if we're open and if I'm sitting and I feel whatever it is that comes up, then you were saying something about a new story can take place. But is it a story or is it just what happens? I don't know. Because if it becomes a story, it's another sort
It's another
of
story, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I said about that. We have a view or a concept about the way we would like things to be, which we think is a nicer way, a better way, a fairer way, a more just way. It's just another box.
Story, yeah. But then my fear is that what then happens with me is I then have this other story, which is I am open.
Yeah, well, that's another story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it sort of goes on and on.
It is.
mind-boggling.
It's like those
Infuriating.
Russian dolls.
Yes.
There's another one inside.
Yes,
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no rest, Miranda.
No.
Look at that. 9:05. Thank you. Thank you.